title of her speech is Coming to America. Coming to America, Wanjiru Mureithi, Coming to America.
Do you remember where you were in August 1997, the day that Princess Diana died? Well, I was in Atlanta, Georgia, in the USA. It was my first trip to America. I had gone to the US for an international congress for an organization called ISEC. Well, that was the reason. The main reason for me really was tracking and connecting with an old flame who had traveled there for his studies. Now, in 1997, I'm not sure how many of you were born. Maybe some of you were not. But if you remember, the modes of our communication were very different then. So in preparation of this trip and to make it a success for my conference motive and my love motive, then everything had to be communicated in time. So a few things were going well for me. Number one, I was on holiday. That meant that my African parents had no reason at all to deny me access to the trip. I know you can relate. Of course, they were not going to be the ones paying for the trip. I knew better than that because I would have been given the choice of school fees or these holidays in the name of international conferences. The other important reason why I was home is because that was the only way to get letters from the post office and receive phone calls on a landline. The most important company in 1997 was Kenya Post and Telecommunications. Although, given their track record, they should have been called Kenya Post and Telecommunication sometimes, because the likelihood of the phone working at the time when you are home and at the time when nobody else is using it was a big puzzle that you could have to fix. So these three things were already making my trip very, very great. Now, because it was in an international congress, ISEC was actually going to cover majority of the costs, leaving us with a small subsidy to pay. It may seem small now, but then 25,000 shillings was a lot of money. But if you think about it, if all I had to pay for a 10-day trip in the US, including return flights on Lufthansa Airways, was 25,000 shillings, small price to pay. So what did I do? The semesters were not concurrent in the second year, which meant that I had actually received the school fees for the second term at the time when we were coming for holidays. So I had it in my savings. That is how I managed to pay the subsidy I had spoken about earlier. On the communication to the said boyfriend abroad, I wrote him a letter and indicated, number one, the dates were coming and the hotel details as I had been given by the conference organizers. Nothing could stop me. The other thing that's very important for anybody going abroad is what? How do you make some extra money, perhaps carrying things from Kenya that people in America would want? I had an auntie who used to sell curios. So here I went to get my consignment of goods that I didn't have to pay for right away. This meant that I could have set up my own Maasai market during the conference to be able to earn some extra money. Everything was looking up. Now, slight curveball came before we left the country, meaning that the Lufthansa ticket was actually longer than the 10 days of the conference. This meant that I would have an extra 2 weeks in America because we were traveling on standby, being a subsidized ticket. Very good news if I made connection with a said boyfriend, because then I would have a holiday and I was going to enjoy the picturesque American landscapes and all that jazz. Off we were to Atlanta. Day 1 to 10 of the conference was great, amazing. I got really great networks, I learned a lot, and I really enjoyed. But there was that nagging phone call I hadn't received yet, or communication, because you can imagine, I had traveled all the way from Nairobi to Atlanta. Surely, said boyfriend, who was already in America, all he had to do was to get from where he was to Atlanta to be reunited with his beloved. But it seems I had made some very, very poor assumptions. First and foremost, I had mentioned the hotel we were staying at as, say, the Hilton, for argument's sake. Where I come from in Nairobi, there is only one Hilton. So when I tell you Hilton Nairobi, you know it is the one and only that is opposite what? Kenya Commercial Bank, right? In Atlanta, apparently, there were like 30 Hiltons. So the poor man, I got to know later, had been calling every Hilton in the greater Atlanta area to find out where said conference and said girlfriend were going to be staying. Unfortunately, I left the hotel by the time he got to the right hotel, which meant that I had another dilemma. The 2 extra weeks that I had hoped to be spending with the boyfriend now had to be spent somewhere else. Luckily, some of the other ISEC members were in the same predicament. So they had secured accommodation somewhere else where I was able to join them. And that is how, for the 2 weeks, I got to enjoy the CNN Center, the Coca-Cola World, and the like, under the care of my fellow members. So 2 things I learned from this experience. 1, love makes the world go round. Because believe it or not, 5 years later, I took a job in Canada, again, to reconnect with who? The same boyfriend. Needless to say, sadly, by the time we met, we were both married. The other thing I learned that planning is very important, but planning requires context. How was I supposed to know that there were many hotels in Atlanta that had the same name? How was I supposed to know that my letter may not have all the necessary details about my trip to enable said boyfriend to find me? No matter my heartbreak, I indeed came to America and I enjoyed my trip. Madam Toastmaster,